WordPress.com provides a series of personal settings for users to customize their experience when working in the back-end admin area. These settings don't have a direct impact on the blog or site as other people see it on the web, but affect how the admin area looks, works, and behaves. These settings are user-specific, so if there are multiple users registered to one blog or site, each user can set his or her own personal settings independently. To get to the personal settings, log in and go to Dashboard, and then go to Users and Personal Settings. Under the Personal Settings tab, you have a lot of different options you can check on or off, and some selections you can make. We'll just go through them from the top so you can see what all this is about. At the very top, you have a box called Fun that just says Surprise Me Fun Mode. This is an optional thing you can turn on or off. It doesn't actually change anything, it just changes how WordPress interacts with you. If you turn it on, it'll give you some interesting stuff that happens. I'm not going to say what it is, and it's not going to be shocking, but if you want to try it out, just activate it and see what happens. Directly under Fun Mode, you have this Instant Post Feedback option. If this one is checked, what happens is once you create a new post, you'll jump directly to the post view, so what normal people will see when they go to your website, and in the sidebar, you'll get information about the post you just created. This is a really good idea, and I think it's a very good improvement to WordPress.com, so I would leave this checked because it gives you more information about what you're doing and gives you an easy way of sharing it out to the world, making quick changes if you missed something, or just seeing what's happening on your site. Underneath Instant Post Feedback, you have Visual Editor, and it allows you to disable the Visual Editor when writing. The only way I can describe it is by showing it to you. So I'm going to open a new window and create a new post. And as you can see, in the new post window, which will be covered in more detail later, you have two tabs. You have the Visual tab and the HTML tab. The Visual tab will show text as it's being entered. So let's say I write something that should be bold. I can now highlight the bold section and click the bold button, and you see it as bold here in the visual editor. But if I go to the HTML view, you see that rather than highlighting it as bold, you see the actual HTML code that makes the text bold, in this case, the strong tag. By clicking the Disable Visual Editor box, you're making it so that the only tab available here is the HTML tab. This is great for people who know HTML or who don't like the visual editor view, but for beginners, I recommend leaving this box unchecked. The next one is Admin Color Scheme. It literally changes the color scheme of the admin panel. The default is gray, but you can change it to blue, and then the sidebar here changes to blue, and some other small things change to blue. You can try it, see what you like better. Keyboard Shortcut enables comment moderation keyboard shortcuts. To get more information, you should click the More Information link. Basically, it allows you to use your keyboard to do quick comment moderation, which is very useful if you have a lot of comments. However, if you have a site that doesn't have that many comments, it doesn't really matter what you do. You can try it. If you don't like it, just turn it back off again. Below Keyboard Shortcuts, there's a text here that says something about text messaging. Now, if you go to Text Messaging Settings, which is a different page, you can activate a function inside WordPress.com that allows you to send text messages to your blog that then get posted right away. This requires a little bit more setup, and like I said, you have to click this Text Messaging Settings button to go to those settings. Below that, you have the Twitter API. And this is very useful. You can set up Twitter so that when you post something on Twitter, it automatically gets sent to the blog and posted on the blog as well under a certain section. It requires a bit more setup, but this is where you activate it, and you can pick which blog you want that to happen on if you have more than one. Directly underneath it, you can also say whether or not you want the geolocation data that's attached to your tweet to also be published on your blog post. Because inside WordPress.com, you can actually geolocate individual posts so that depending on where you are, people will see your physical location when you posted the new post. The next option is a very important one, and it's one I recommend you always leave checked. It is the Always Use HTTPS when visiting administration pages. HTTPS is a secure encoding for your site. If it's activated, it means that people can't snoop on you while you're interacting with the admin pages. This is really important if, for example, you're at a coffee shop with free Wi-Fi, because if you visit a site that doesn't use HTTPS, other people who are on the network can see what you're typing and can capture things like your username and password. However, if this is checked, and you always use HTTPS when visiting administration pages, people can't snoop on what you're typing. One more important thing though, if you have this checked, you also have to make sure you're actually using the HTTPS link, and you can see that up in the URL here. If you click on the URL, you would see it says https:// at the beginning. If it doesn't say that, or if it has a red strike through it, it means that you are currently not on HTTPS, even though you think you are. So leave this one checked at all times. The next option is interface language. It is literally the interface language. So not the language you are writing in when you're in WordPress, but rather the language WordPress talks to you in. So, for instance, if you speak Norwegian like I do, you can change it to Norwegian and then WordPress will appear in Norwegian. I'll show you just so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'll pick Norwegian and I'll save it. And then you see here, personlige innstillinger, it means personal settings, but it's in Norwegian. So it's kind of neat because it actually translates most of the WordPress interface into whatever language you pick. I'll change it back to English so we can continue. The language setting is especially helpful if you're dealing with people who don't speak English or another one of the standard languages, like kids or someone else, or if you just don't like the English layout of WordPress. Primary blog has to do with the primary blog attached to your account. So let's say you have multiple blogs and sites registered under the account you're currently logged in as. You probably have one that you use all the time, and that is your primary blog. So this has to do with where you would automatically go to if you said, I want to make a new post without actually logging into that specific site. The next option is a big one, and it's actually really neat. Under proofreading, you can get WordPress to help you write better content. At the top, you can set whether or not WordPress automatically proofreads your content when you publish the content or when it's updated. I recommend checking both so that when you publish content, WordPress will go through it and tell you if it's written properly or if it's biased or anything. And also, if you choose to go in and update the post later on, it'll still go through it, check it to make sure that everything is up to par. Now, underneath here, you have all these English options, and this is specific to the English language, but it allows WordPress to check for other things rather than just spelling errors. It'll check for things like biased language, use of cliches or complex phrases, and so on. This is really neat because it'll help you see how you write things in a different light. So if you're using a lot of big words, it'll tell you you're using a lot of big words. Maybe not everyone will understand what you're saying. Or if you keep repeating yourself, it'll tell you that too. It's a neat function. It can get a little annoying if you're like me and you make a lot of spelling errors or you just don't care about how you write things. But if you're really focused on writing things properly and accurately and everything, and you want to improve your writing, you should try to activate some of these and just play around with them and see what happens. At the bottom here, you'll notice that there are two more functions attached to the proofreading. One is the use automatically detected language to proofread posts and pages. It tries to figure out what language you wrote the content in, and then it'll proofread based on that content. It's usually accurate, but not always. So if you write in multiple different languages, you might want to click on that box and see what happens. At the bottom, you can also put in ignored phrases. Phrases that the proofreader won't check for. That could be specific words that you intentionally write incorrectly. It could be names like Samoka or something like that you don't want to get flagged every time it pops up. Finally, for the post section, you have this last one that's called additional post content. It helps you find other content published by other people online that somehow relates to your content, and it's powered by a service called Zemanta. I've tried it. I find it to be interesting that it relates to things it does, and sometimes it can be very useful. But it's something I would use with a bit of caution because sometimes you end up with things that aren't really that well related. But if you're looking for help writing better content and you really need to find content elsewhere on the internet, activating this feature might help you find content you weren't aware of beforehand. At the very bottom of the personal settings, you have account details. The account details relate to your account specifically and show you the username, the email that the username is attached to, the website, and it allows you to change your password. And this is what's really most important about the account details. This is where you set your password. So if you need to change your password, you log into WordPress, go to the dashboard, go to personal settings, and then go all the way to the bottom under account details and reset it. When you're done with all your changes, click Save Changes. WordPress jumps you back up to the top and shows User Updated. The last feature on the personal settings page is the My Location setting. It allows you to enable geotagging for the page. So what happens is you can actually give each post and yourself a geolocation on a map to tell the visitors where the post was written and where you are. The easiest way of setting a geolocation is to click the Auto Detect button. When you do that, your browser will ask you if you should allow the website to find your location. So I'll click Allow, and it'll find in pretty accurate terms where I am, because I'm in Ventura right now, so you see it rings in Ventura for me. However, it's not always that accurate, so sometimes you have to literally zoom out, look at the map, and figure out where you are yourself, and then just place the cursor wherever you think you are. When you activate this feature, you also enable the feature inside each post, so you can then geolocate each post. It's something you may want to do if you're like a travel blogger or something like that, where the geolocation of a post matters. But if you have privacy concerns, I would recommend not enabling geotagging. All that's left to do then is save changes. And my personal settings are now up to date. WordPress provides customizability at every level. That includes how the backend admin area works. From the personal settings, you can control how WordPress works and behaves, and more importantly, you can get WordPress to help you with both language and further information. Though often overlooked, personal settings are powerful and well worth the 2 minutes it takes to set them up properly.